I think I remember last year when Pitt won 7 games in a row to start the 2024 season, and it was just win after win after win. I don't think I remember getting bored by it. I don't think I remember sitting down and saying, ho hum, Pitt wins again, no big deal. Oh, well, what are we going to talk about now? But I'm sure it was probably more fun to talk about than right now. I'm sure it was probably more enjoyable to talk about that 7-game winning streak than it is to talk about whatever Pitt is doing right now. Because what Pitt is doing right now is losing games and blowing games. And I've got a lot to say about this game today. Pitt's 34-27 loss to Louisville at Acrisure Stadium drops Pitt's record over to 2-2 overall, 0-1 in the ACC. I imagine you have a lot to say about this game as well. And, I think people are filtering in, coming into the live stream. We appreciate everybody for waiting for us until 7:00. I know we waited a couple hours after the end of the game. I just want to take a couple minutes to let everybody get in here before we really dive into some of the takes, right? Before we get into the takes on things, I want to give everybody a few minutes to join the live stream. Remember, get in the chat section, the chat screen over there to post your comments and questions so you can join the conversation. We got a ton of comments and questions in there already. Lots of things to talk about. Lots of people have a lot of comments and reactions. Look, we try to get through as many as we can. If you want to make sure we read your comment or answer your question, be a super chatter, okay? Click a little dollar sign down there at the bottom, kick a couple bucks to the podcast. We appreciate that, and we'll definitely read your comment or your question. Listen, but if you're a super chatter, what you got to do is make sure you put your comment or your question in there. All right. I can't search through and try and find what you said. So put it with your super chat contribution, and we will make sure we read it. We got a bunch of super chats already, and we're going to start with those guys as we dive into this. We will be on the super chatters first, and then we'll go through everybody who has everything to say. And you guys have a lot to say, and understandably, because look, this is now 2 games in a row that Pitt has straight up blown it against a not very good team. Because look, Louisville's not very good. Miller Moss is not very good. Isaac Brown is awesome. Duke Watson's pretty good. Chris Bell is pretty awesome. I'm pretty sure from what I've seen, in the past. Today, he was just okay. Colin Lacey's pretty solid. Their tight ends had some nice catches, but they're not that good. I don't think they're going to do well in the ACC. They just barely got past James Madison. I know they're 4-0 right now, but maybe we will end up talking about Louisville over the next few weeks, the way people talked about Pitt last year when Pitt was off to its undefeated start. I don't think they're very good. I don't think West Virginia's very good. I don't think Louisville's very good. And now Pitt is sitting with losses to both of those teams. And we could debate whether or not Pitt is worse than those teams. We could talk about whether or not they did the better team win, the better team lose. I don't really get into the better team winning or the better team losing. What's interesting to me is whether or not you blew. Oh, there's the dog. Go on, get out of here, buddy. You're not in the live stream. See, do dogs make everybody feel better? You guys are all bummed out about the loss. Do you get better when you feel better when you see the dog? Sometimes people like seeing the pups. So it's not, I don't like to sit back and say, well, the better team lost. I mean, you have 60 minutes. You have 60 minutes. You have 80, 90 plays, 60 plays, whatever it might be. You have plenty of opportunities to prove you're the better team. You might have maybe overall in a talent-wise, you're the better team. But today, you're not the better team, right? The losing team in any given game is not the better team. And so I'm not going to sit back and say, oh, Pitt was the better team and all that stuff. But I don't think Louisville and West Virginia are very good. And here's my I got a lot of thoughts about this game, but here's one thought that I just couldn't shake as I was sitting in the press box at Acrisure Stadium doing some post-game stuff and then driving home and everything like that. Did you guys watch Entourage? Back in the day, did you watch Entourage? I don't know that I necessarily thought it was a great show, but I watched a whole lot of it. And do you remember when they made Medellin, right? And they take it to Sundance or wherever they were, and they screen it and all this kind of stuff. And Eric's big opinion about Medellin is it's a bad movie, right? And he says, it's just not good, but there are great parts in here. There are great pieces to this. It just needs to be run a different way. It needs to be put together a different way. It needs to be constructed differently. There's something good in this movie, but it's just not good the way it's been put together. And that's what I kept thinking about this team. There are good pieces on this team. There are good players on this team. Somebody on the message boards was like, there's just not game-changing ability. I mean, did you watch Rasheem Biles go 75 yards with that pick six? Dude, that's game-changing ability. Rasheem Biles has played well this season. Cruz Brookins is playing really well this season, I think. I think Kavir Baines-Marquez came off the bench and played pretty well. Maybe they lost something in terms of the pass coverage without Javon McIntyre out there, after he got hurt kind of early in the game. But I thought he handled it well. I thought, the defensive tackles, I'm going to have to go back and kind of rewatch. I'm going to have to watch the tape to see how those guys did. Stat-wise, they didn't really put up much. Sean Fitzsimmons had 3 tackles. Blaine Spires got hurt, and he's not a tackle. Francis Brew had 1 tackle. I think we can go down the list, and I think there are good players on this team. But right now, this thing is such a mess that it feels rudderless. It feels like there's no leadership. It feels disorganized at times. And it feels like, I don't want to say it feels like it's falling apart, but it just doesn't feel like it's held together very well. And I think in the fourth quarter, you have 2 really interesting instances of just looking like a mess, like looking like a disorganized mess out there. And it was the 2 times they called timeout on fourth down. And I'll look the 2 up just because they were both so notable. I know I wrote them down. So it's early in the fourth quarter. Second or third play of the fourth quarter. They've, after 3rd and 5, they threw a screen pass to Deuce Spann that lost 2 yards, but it's 4th and 7 from the 39. And they just stand there. They stand at the line of scrimmage. The offense is just standing there. You say, what are they doing? They're at the 39. It's 4th and 7. It's a longer fourth down, but you're at the 39. Are they making a decision? Are they going to take a delay of game and try and push it back? Is this like the West Virginia game where, again, they look disorganized and out of sorts and discombobulated and just not very, they looked like a mess in that West Virginia game when they're standing at the line of scrimmage, just watching the clock roll down, and they end up taking delay of game. Eli Holstein comes off the field. He looks like he's arguing with Cade Bell, who seems to be saying that he was trying to get Eli Holstein to signal a timeout. They look like a mess there. And here they are again. It's right in the start of the fourth quarter. It's only a minute and a half into the fourth quarter. They run the play clock and the game clock all the way down, and then they call a timeout. And then they send the offense back on the field. What were you doing? What is going on? Why are you either know you're going for it or you're not. When you call the 3rd and 5 play with the screen to Deuce Spann, and it doesn't matter what the play is, but when you're sitting there on 3rd and 5, you're thinking to yourself, okay, if we get 0 to 2 yards, if we lose yards, here's what we're going to do. If we get 0 to 2 yards, here's what we're going to do. If we get 3 to 5 yards, if we get 3 or 4 yards, here's what we're going to do. Going into it, based on the result of the 3rd down play, what you're going to do on 4th down. And instead they stand there, run the clock. And Pitt was leading at that point. They were up 27-20. But it was still like 13 minutes to go in the game. So it's not like you're just trying to get a game clock advantage. You're trying to drain the clock here. And then they call a timeout. And then they come back out and run a play on offense anyway, when the offense was on the field. And never mind that the play was like a swing pass to Jakirian Turner, who dropped it. I'm sure there was something else that was the primary read, and that was the check down option. But so I won't even get into that's the play you came up with. I don't know why you needed a timeout there. Why did you have to use a timeout, which would be very valuable and handy later in the game when you're trying to come back because you've blown a double-digit halftime lead again? And then it happened again. And then it happened later in the fourth quarter. And I think probably when I said about a timeout on 4th down in the fourth quarter, this is probably the one you were thinking of. Pitt's, it was the Cole Gonzalez drive. It was the first drive with Cole Gonzalez. And here they are. It's 3rd and 6 from the Pitt 49. Clock's ticking under 4 minutes. Gonzalez gets sacked, and it's 4th and 7 at the 48. All right. Now you're in an interesting spot here. Okay. You've got 2 timeouts left. Clock is under 4 minutes. It's 4th and 7. You're at the Pitt 48. That's kind of a long distance from that spot. You could make a good case that if you punt You can pin them back. You got 2 timeouts to use. You can conserve some time. If you get a stop on defense, you get the ball back and you get another shot at this. Or you could go for it. I don't really have an issue with either one of those options. 4th and 7's kind of long. I might be like 51-49 on punting there, but whatever. Like, whatever you want to do, fine. But at least know what you want to do. At least have an idea of what you're going to do. Know going into the 3rd and 6 play what you're going to do. Okay, if we get 0-2, here's what we're going to do. If we get 3-4, here's what we're going to do. If we get 5, this is the plan. Know it. And instead, they send the punt team out. A chorus of boos from a few thousand people who are still in the stadium rains down. They wait and they call a timeout after the clock has already ticked under 3 minutes, only to send the offense back out. I asked Pat Narduzzi about this after the game. Not in so many words of what the hell was going on there, but I'll read from the transcript of my question and Pat Narduzzi's answer. My question. There were a couple times on 4th down in the second half where you called a timeout. I think the one time you had the punt team out, you called the timeout, sent the offense back out. Are there communication issues? Things slowing down there? Narduzzi, quote, no communication. I said punt the ball, and then after I thought about it, I was like, we're going to go for it. We got to go for the win. You know what? And actually, I'll finish the quote. Quote, I just didn't have a whole lot of confidence in punting to make sure we get the ball back and how much time. If we get big there, and defense got the ball back, which was more time. Wish we had more timeouts. It's not effective leadership. It's not effective coaching. It's not effective organization to say, and I believe this is accurate, I said punt the ball, and then after I thought about it, I was like, we're going to go for it. We got to go for the win. You have to know that before the ball is even snapped on 3rd down. And then he goes on to say, I wish we had more timeouts. If you didn't waste those 2 timeouts on 2 4th down situations, one where you had the offense out there, called timeout, sent the offense back out after running down the clock, or the other one where you pulled the offense off, sent the punt team out, and then called timeout to send the offense back out, you would have all 3 of your timeouts when Louisville is driving, on Louisville's final possession, and the 2-minute timeout, and you get the ball back. This, more than anything else, is the most troubling thing to me. Not these timeouts, but this is what's most troubling to me right now as we sit here on September 27th. We talk about Pitt football 2025 and the state of the Pitt football program. These moments where it just seems like nobody has any idea what they're doing. I can't sit back and say and believe that it's effective coaching strategy to say, I changed my mind. I want to go for it. You either do it or you don't. You either follow analytics or you don't. You make a decision, but you have to know that going into it. You have to know it before 3rd and 6. On 3rd and 6, sure, there's countless possibilities of scenarios that can unfold from that 3rd and 6 play. You've got to have 2 or 3 of the most likely possible scenarios already in your head. So whatever happens, you are ready to go with it. And ideally, you could communicate it to the offensive coordinator as well, so he knows, so he's ready. Okay, if we get 2 or less, this is what we're doing. If we get 3 or 4, this is what we're doing. If we get 5 or 6, so that Cade Bell is ready to call the play. This is effective management. This is effective leadership. This is effective organization. And it's not there. And that's what's troubling to me. That's what's most troubling to me. That I just, like, what are you doing? And I don't mean to rant, but this is the kind of thing that should not be happening in year 11. Okay. And I don't want to make it just about Pat Narduzzi. There's a lot of issues with this team. There are a lot of things that need to be done differently and a lot of people who need to do them differently. But like, this is year 11 as a head coach. And these things right here, these things we're talking about, and it's not just these 2 timeouts. It's stuff throughout the game. And it was stuff throughout the West Virginia game. And it was stuff throughout the first 2 games. And it was stuff throughout the 6-game losing streak last season. And it was stuff throughout the 3-9 season in 2023. And it was stuff throughout that, stretch in October when they lost a bunch of games in 2022. And it's stuff throughout. There are too many examples of these kinds of mistakes happening. Too many examples. And I just don't see how it's acceptable. I don't see how it's acceptable for Pat Narduzzi to feel like this is the way the program should be operated. And so something feels different now than some of the, even though I just recounted examples of similar things from previous years, it feels different after this loss than it did after some others. I uncorked the bottle. I guess I should pour one here. But what is our shot of the game going to be? Our Backshore Apparel shot of the game. Let's see. I mean, Rasheem Biles was pretty good in this game. I guess here's what I'll do. It's it seems fitting. I mean, Rasheem Biles was good. I want to give him a lot of credit. But we won't make him the shot of the game. I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll give it to Blue Hicks. Blue Hicks takes on his former team, his team that didn't ever really get him involved, gave him, I think his career high in Louisville was 6 catches for, whatever it was, 60 yards or something like that against Pitt. Blue Hicks goes out there today, 4 catches, 113 yards and a touchdown, a great 56-yard catch, an incredible job focusing on the ball for a touchdown catch in the first quarter. Where he had it, he bobbled it, and he held on. Shout out to Blue Hicks, his former team that didn't think he was good enough, so they didn't get him more involved. He goes out and goes 4 for 113 and a touchdown on 6 targets. It was a rough game. There weren't many bright spots. There were some bright spots. There weren't many bright spots, but Blue Hicks, you'll get maybe our first shot of the game, but certainly for now, our only Backshore Apparel shot of the game. They're going down easier as the season goes on, which is probably a good thing and a bad thing. It's just troubling. It's frustrating and it's troubling to see when you have these kind of like organizational issues. And you know what? Have you guys seen the video of Rasheem Biles after the interception where he's on the sideline and the ball boy is trying to wrestle the ball away from him, and he's wrestling with the ball boy, and somebody else is trying to wrestle the ball because Rasheem Biles wants to get the ball back so he can go do a turnover dunk? It's stuff like that. Like this is not what a respectable, well-run program should be doing. This is not the image that a respectable, well-run program should be putting out. Clock management stuff is one of these things. Like, everybody thinks their coach is the worst at clock management. You know what I mean? Like Mike Tomlin, he's the worst at clock management. Pat Narduzzi, he's the worst at clock management. Every fan base will tell you a time of how when their coach screwed up clock management because they sat on their couch and watched it, and 30 seconds after the decision needed to be made said, well, obviously what you should have done was this. And if it's like a punt or kick or go for it thing, I mean, you got 1 in 3 chance of being right on what you say of like what actually like works out. So I don't, clock management. I mean, some guys are probably better than it than others. Some guys are not great. A lot of it comes down to how you think in the moment. But what we're talking about here with these timeouts, these 4th down timeouts, it feels like something bigger and something more. It's not just clock management. It's not just 2 random snaps in the 4th quarter of this game. It's a bigger problem with, program organization and operation and just how you're doing things, how things are working. And Right now, they're not. And now, as a result, and we're going to get into the super chatters after I say this last bit, because I've spent 20 minutes here on my takes, and we didn't even mention Eli Holstein yet. I'm sure we've all got a lot to say on that particular front. But the worst part of it all is kind of what I was saying earlier. The West Virginia, I don't think is very good. I don't think Louisville is very good. I don't think either of those teams are going to win all that many games, even though Louisville is 4-0 right now. If you're Pitt, there are some definite challenges on your schedule. And then there are games that you should be able to win. But like every time you waste one of these games, you waste one of these opportunities, it makes it that much tougher to get to, forget 8 wins, 9 wins now. Now you're like, okay, how are you going to piece together 6 wins, 7 wins out of what remains on this schedule? There's only 8 games left. You are a third of the way into this season. And what have you done? You beat Duquesne, you beat Central Michigan, and you wasted 2 games against West Virginia and Louisville. And as I'm sure many people will point out, you are now 2-8 in your last 10 games. And included in those 2-8, 1 win against an FCS team, 1 win against a MAC team. Oh, and a loss. All right, let's go into the super chatters. We got a lot of super chatters who jumped in here, and I really appreciate everybody who did so. Ski8210 says it's not that they lose, but how they do it. Coming off a bye and a loss, and you have 5 turnovers and 1 out of 10 on third down, blowing leads, unacceptable and squarely on the coaches. Props for pulling Eli and trying to win. Yeah, let's see, 5 turnovers. So I guess, there's 3 interceptions. And then we're counting 2 fumbles lost. Yeah, Caleb Junko. And then I guess the Kenny Johnson fair catch interference, which was BS. I mean, like it was crap. The flag was thrown. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, how could they not throw a flag on that? They threw a flag on it to then be convinced that they should pick the flag up. I mean, that was crap. It wasn't why they lost the game, but it was BS. And the fact that they had that happen, and it ended up costing them a touchdown. Like they gave up a short yardage touchdown to Louisville after that. It was like, look, this is the only thing Louisville is going to be able to pull off is score like a 3-yard touchdown drive. You know what I mean? Like, because that's what it was. 3 plays for 3 yards. They're not going to be able to drive the length of the field. Like that was Louisville's. I mean, that was their 5th offensive possession. And, their 4 offensive possessions prior to that, 3 plays for minus 13 yards, 9 plays for 31 yards, 8 for 23, 5 for 13. Like they weren't moving the ball. They weren't doing anything. And so when Louisville got that touchdown, it was like, wow, Pitt got hosed on that call. It was a bad flag or a bad flag pickup. But this is the only way that Louisville's going to even have a chance to get points. So no concerns there. And it sort of felt that way. But what you didn't count on was a fumbled punt that gives Louisville the ball at the 25, or an interception that gives Louisville the ball at the 30, because Louisville scored 4 touchdown drives, and those 4 touchdown drives, one was 3 yards, another was 25 yards, and one was 30 yards. Only the 3rd touchdown was a 61-yard drive. Out of all of Louisville's possessions, I think they had 16 possessions. Maybe, 4, they had one at the end of each half. So 14 possessions. I think they only had 2 drives that got more than 36 yards. Louisville wasn't really moving the ball. They ran a ton of plays. They ended up with a lot of possessions. They ended up huge time of possession advantage, which Pitt, the pick 6 and that kick catch interference, the fair catch interference, extended offensive possessions for Louisville and offensive, extended possession time. Louisville won time of possession 39-22 to 20-38. And so they ended up with 392 yards of offense. They threw, Miller Moss threw for 339. They averaged less than 5 yards per play, but they weren't really driving the field. Pitt gave them 3 short fields that they were able to cash in and score touchdowns on. And so it's like, yeah, well, Pitt was able to weather the storm, survive that bad penalty, non-call. Louisville won't keep getting short yardage situations like that. Well, they did. They kept getting short yardage over and over again. Back to Ski 8210's question here. Unacceptable on third down squarely on the coaches. Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a huge bit of this that falls on the coaches. Like I just said, Props for pulling Eli Holstein and trying to win. Yeah, I think after the second interception, there was no way you could send him back out there. I think you had to make that move. And, they had to do it. Really, I think the bigger question was like, well, should you go with Cole Gonzalez or Mason Heichel? I guess they felt like in that particular moment, late in the game on the line, Cole Gonzalez was their better option. He did not really do anything. He did not play well. I think he was 3 of 6 for 31 yards, and he got sacked once and threw an interception. So how many yards did I say? 31? Yeah, 20, 31. Yeah, that's right. Because he completed 3 passes. And, hey, when I think he threw the pass to Raphael Williams that converted a third down, right? Or, and that was like the only third down conversion for Pitt in the second half. Anyway, they had to pull him. I don't think you could keep Holstein in at that point. And so at least they made that decision. Kyle Peterson is a super chatter, says awful special teams, play calling, quarterback play. Pitt should have risen as a program after the ACC title. Look how they've fallen. Pat Narduzzi needs out yesterday. Special teams, I always feel bad. I don't even think about it. Pitt messes up so much in these last couple of games. I haven't even really thought about special teams all that much. Trey Bukowski made his 2 field goals. And Kenny Johnson, even with the bad penalty, like, he didn't have to touch the ball. Like, he could have just run away from it. You know what I mean? Like, if he knew that guy was bearing down, he could have just run away from it. They might have lost some field position if the ball rolled back toward the end zone and the guy downed it. But he could have just gotten away from it and not made it a live ball by contacting it. Even if everyone thought it was going to be a penalty, and it should have been, he could have just gotten away from the ball and not made contact. But that wasn't what he did. Otherwise, special teams. I mean, Caleb Junko, I think, has punted well, but obviously he had a crucial error when he fumbled that punt. I think he punted really well today. Again, he averaged 45 yards on his punts. He had a long of 54, put one of his 3 punts inside the 20. I think Caleb Junko has been good this year, but that's a crucial error. That's a big, big mistake to drop that punt. Michael B is a super chatter, says, hi, Chris. Yeah, I'm super bummed. I thought when Pitt got up 17-0, we were perhaps going to blow them out. My question is this. If Pitt really goes 2-10, 3-9, or 4-8, do you think Pat Narduzzi will be fired? Pitt needs a fresh face. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I can't even speculate on it. Like, all I can do is look at what's going on right now, where the team is right now, where the program is right now, and kind of how things stand. And I don't know what they would do at the end of the season. I think there's still 8 games left to play. I think there are a lot of hypothetical ways that those 8 games can play out. It's a new athletic director. And I think that could mean a couple things. I think it could mean a new athletic director comes in and says, you know what, I'm done with this. We'll find a way to pay for it. You're out. A new athletic director also could come in and say, hey, we haven't spent the last 7 years or however many building this relationship. You and I don't have sort of the dynamics of our relationships, worked out yet. And so I'm going to tell you what's up. You need to fix this, this, and this. And not necessarily telling them to fire people or hire people, but like, you need to find a way to get your players under control. You need to get your sideline under control. You need to make this program not an embarrassment. And Chris Peak, I'm not necessarily saying it's an embarrassment, but if I were Alan Green, I could look at it and say, consistently one of the most penalized teams in the ACC, getting going viral for, fighting a ball boy on the sideline. Like, we look like idiots with the timeouts. Like, I, kind of feel a little embarrassed by what we're seeing here. And I'm not going to put up with that. You need to get some of these things under control. And that's a conversation that could happen tomorrow. If I'm Alan Green, I'm the boss. I can call the coach and say, you need to get this taken care of. Okay. Your quarterback's struggling. All right. Work on that. But there are some of these other things you need to get your team in line with. So I don't know about fired, but I think the athletic director can, assert some influence here. Benjamin Glazer's a super chatter. Sir, I appreciate it. I got to try and find your comment because I You don't have it on here, but I'll try and look through for it. Voodoo IPA is a super chatter. I'm pissed about the choking 2 games in a row, and I'm more pissed that my dead daughter's name wasn't correct at the pediatric cancer event. I'm sorry to hear that. We all get caught up in the games, and we all talk about what's going on and plays and all this stuff. I have all these plays written down on this paper right here where I can talk about how they only had 10 positive gains in the second half or something like that. But like, there's obviously things that are more important, and I'm sorry that the event you attended, which I think you mentioned on the live stream, that's unfortunate. Hopefully you can reach out to the organizers and maybe they can find a way to make it right. I'm not sure which group that was, but you have my condolences for that. Thomas Foster, also a super chatter. You got to put the comments in here, guys. What time did you send this here, Thomas? 7:02. Let's scroll through. I can go by the timestamp here and see if Thomas, if I can find Thomas's remark. There's Benjamin Glazer. Benjamin Glazer was also a super chatter. Says Eli Holstein deserves everything he's receiving, but his offensive coordinator puts him in position to fail. And the offensive line is just not good enough. Latter is made worse by no running back usage in the game. Yeah, we'll get to the running backs for sure. See if I can find Thomas Foster's remark, sir. I don't see it, but I will keep an eye out for it. Maybe threw it in at the end here. Thomas Foster, I appreciate your support, and I will try to see if I can find your comment. In the meantime, we'll move on here. Scott Martin says this feels like the end of the Walt Harris and Dave Wanstead days. Well, except Walt Harris won the Big East in his final year. Walt Harris in 2004, I mean, did he have a blowout loss? I don't know if he had like an embarrassing. Let me see. Let me check. I'm going to refresh my memory on 2004 of whether this is comparable to that. Because Dave Wanstead in 2010 had like blowout losses to Miami and West Virginia. Dave Wanstead lost to Connecticut with the Big East championship on the line. There were a lot of embarrassments in that last season for Dave Wanstead. But 2004, Walt Harris lost to Nebraska by a touchdown, lost at UConn, which was always that was the first game. That was like the slide game, right? Lost at Syracuse in overtime and then lost the bowl game. So only lost 3 games in the regular season. It doesn't really feel like that. There were a lot of weird vibes at that point. This is not weird vibes. This is just anger and frustration about where the program is right now. As far as that goes. Another Wombat says this season is probably lost. Sad to waste a good defense. Eli should have been benched earlier. The timeout on 4th down was insane, just mind-boggling. Yeah, I agree. ZC717 is today is the day where I realized Pat Narduzzi's shelf life is expired. I know his buyout is large, but it's time. That's going to be the real challenge. Is if you decide that you want to move on from the head coach, you got to find a way to make it work financially. And that's not always easy. Michael B, double super chatter, says, by the way, Chris, West Virginia lost at home to Utah 48-14. Remember, they lost to Ohio. I know they lost to Ohio. Everybody knows they lost to Ohio, yet they beat Pitt. Everyone also knows they beat Pitt. We had some version of this conversation a lot. I don't think Pitt is bad. I think Pitt is a pretty good football team. Are they a perfect team? No. Their depth is getting tested considerably today. No Desmond Reed, no Rashawn Murray, no Tamon Lynam. So they're down their top running back and 2 of their top 4 corners. Going into during the game, Blaine Spires and Zach Crothers both left with injuries. We all saw Crothers get hurt. And I didn't really see Spires get hurt, but at a certain point he wasn't coming in anymore. So they were down to Jimmy Scott, Joey Zielinski, Nate Temple, and Maverick Grazio. They went down to safety. Javon McIntyre came out, and Kavir Baines Marquez had to come in for him, and that brought in Alan Bryant in the Delta package. I think they gave up some plays there. Keith Kuvea got hurt, so now they were down to Ryan Coretta. I mean, they're having some injuries that are testing the depth, and there's some spots where they're not particularly deep to handle that test. But overall, I don't think they're a bad team. I really don't. I think they have good enough players to win. They have good enough players to be 4-0 right now. I really believe that. They've had some of those players have made mistakes, which is which is part of it too. And you have to consider that. You can't pretend like that's not the case. But I think they are getting, I think there are real issues on the sidelines right now that need to be figured out. And some issues you start to wonder, like, well, can that be resolved? Like Cade Bell's development as a play caller. I don't think he's doing a great job right now. He's calling some good plays, but he's not as consistent as he needs to be. I don't think he's running the ball well enough. As we talk about the running backs, Kerryon Turner, 6 carries for 36 yards. Juelz Goff, 7 carries for 32 yards. That's 13 carries for 68 yards between those two guys. What's the math on that? Come on, who knows their math right off the top of the head? 68 divided by 13. That's more than 5 yards per carry. They were running the ball well, particularly early. And then they went away from it. Like, you can't convince me that when you go first and goal from the 4, you shouldn't come out and hand it off. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you should come out, hand the ball off. First and goal from the 4. Instead, they throw. Eric Bruno says, apathy has officially set in for me. Until the head coach is out, expect nothing more. This is just awful coaching and awful in-game adjustments. The apathy's tough. A lot of people are feeling it. Josh M says, it's hard being a Pitt fan at this point. Do you root for Pitt, or would you consider yourself a neutral observer? Do losses like this get to you? This is always an interesting question. People often ask like some version of this question. The one thing I always say, this is always the case, because there's more gray area the further you get into the conversation. But one thing that's always true is when I'm watching these games, there's always a little voice in the back of my head saying, well, what's the board going to think about that? What's the message? How's the message board going to react to that? And when Pitt is blowing a 27-17, lead, when they're blowing a 17-0 lead, there's part of me that's sitting there thinking like, oh God, it's going to be that kind of week on the boards. I was just like, well, here we go again. Going to have another week of dealing with message board turmoil. Couldn't just get one peaceful week. There was a little point when they were up 17-0, like Michael B reference of like, they might be all right. All right. They might be all right. They might've had a bad day in Morgantown. They're rebounding, they might be all right. But so there's that. Like, I'm not rooting for Pitt, but I do appreciate things that are good for business. And I appreciate things that maintain a little bit of calmness on the message board. In terms of being a neutral observer, I mean, I do try to be a neutral observer, just in like terms of what I write and what I say. But I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you, and I'm a human being, right? I'm a person who sat and watched this game. I'm a person who has followed this program pretty closely for the last 20 years. I've watched every game, a lot of them twice, 3 times, gotten to know a lot of the people involved, from the coaches and players and support staff and all this different stuff. And so, like, inevitably, when I sit down to talk after a game like this, I'm not just like, I'm not going to be a robot. Like, I think it's ridiculous that you have these situations with these timeouts in the fourth quarter. I think it's ridiculous that, you're, some of these decisions, in terms of how you want to, if you want to run or you want to pass, or when it makes more sense to do this or do that. Like, I remember talking to someone once, another reporter, and I was like, he was getting all worked up after a game, yelling about this or that. I'm like, dude, just stop. Who cares? It's a game. You're just here to cover it. Like, you don't have anything, there's no reason this game should get you that upset. You're just writing about it. He was like, I'm just tired of watching bad football. It's like, you know what? As a sports fan, I think you can have that sort of reaction to bad football and bad decisions and poor clock management and use of timeouts, head scratching moves like we saw in the fourth quarter with some of those 4th down timeouts. So I get that part of it. I think that is an element. So, Josh M, you say, do you root for Pitt, or would you consider yourself a neutral observer? I would say a neutral observer, but as a sports fan, like, you're going to get worked up when you see stuff that doesn't make sense. Plan 2 says, for a shot. He's a super chatter for a shot. So we did the shot. If we do another one, I'll dedicate it to you, sir. Josh Newark says, questionable personnel decisions. Where was Goff? Why on the first drive in the fourth quarter were the receivers, Raphael Williams, Zion Fowler, and Deuce Spann. Yeah, and he spells it S-P-A-H-N, like spawn. There's this weird movement to start calling him Deuce Spawn. I don't know where this came from. They said it on the broadcast last week, and they said it on the PA. Our guy Joe DeStio on the PA at Acrisure Stadium was saying that. So you're saying on the first drive in the fourth quarter, let's look at what the personnel was, because I write all those things down. First drive of the fourth quarter, it was actually the drive that started at the end of the third quarter. They had Jakiri and Turner out there with Deuce Spann, Raphael Williams, Zion Fowler, and Justin Holmes. That drive, they started the Pitt 44 and made it about 17 yards, 18 yards or 19 yards, whatever it is, to the 37. Juelz Goff played on the next two drives, though. He was out there on Eli Holstein's second interception, and then he was out there on the Cole Gonzalez possession, and he was out there on the final drive of the game. So, Juelz Goff was out there. I don't mind rotating those two running backs. Like, we'll see what the snap counts. See if Pro Football Focus has snap counts just yet. I don't know if they would. It looks like they've got some up. So, according to Pro Football Focus, Turner played 13 snaps and Goff played 40 snaps. So a lot more work for Goff than Turner. Like I say, in terms of carries, Turner had 6, Goff had 7. Goff also had 3 targets, 2 catches. Turner had 1 target, no catch. I don't mind that split of the workload. I just wanted, percentage-wise between those two guys, that's fine. There just should have been more. Like there just should have been more carries for both. Because I think they were running well, and I think the line was blocking them and giving them some space. And I think you saw some signs of what Juelz Goff can do and what Jakiri and Turner can do when you put the ball in their hands. They're not going to make you forget Desmond Reed, but they're pretty good. And Pitt just never really went to him. Looking at the totals. So, Turner, Goff, Jalen Williams, that's 14 rushing attempts. For those guys. Eli Holstein had a couple of rushing attempts, and he also had a couple sacks and scrambles, but Holstein threw the ball 26 times. So your running back carried the ball 14 times. Your quarterback threw the ball 26 times, plus more times that he dropped back to pass, and he was sacked or scrambled. So a heavy imbalance toward the pass, despite the fact that you were playing with a lead. And I know that's what Cade Bell wants to do. That's Cade Bell's offense. He wants to throw the ball. He wants to, he's a pass happy offense, a pass first offense. He's not going to lean on the run like that. But you've got playmakers. You can make plays with those guys, and you can move the ball down the field with those guys. Like, I hate to make it like overly simplistic. You just got to run more. But man, sometimes you just got to run more, particularly if you can do it. And I think they can. Priya says, will Pat Narduzzi last the whole season or get booted? I don't think they're going to make a change anytime during the season. I think the downside outweighs the upside there. I fail to see the upside there. I'm not really sure. I don't really know what you gain. I think you just stand to run into major roster issues. I guess you want to try and get a head start on, hiring a new coach, but it's not, if I think because they're moving the transfer portal window, right? So it's not right after the end of the regular season. So you could, in theory, get to the end of the regular season. If you're inclined to make a coaching change, you could make it. You have the whole month of December to get a new coach in and have him re-recruit and keep your players on the roster. And you have a little bit more time to pull that off. So I just don't think there's a lot of upside in making a move during the season if you're so inclined to do it. Swim Boyd is a super chatter, just says, thanks for being here. For us, Chris. Hey, man, thank you for being here. I appreciate that like 200 people want to hang out here on 7 o'clock on a Saturday night and talk about a game where their favorite team blew a 3-score lead to lose a conference game that they really had no business losing. So I appreciate you guys. The next shot of the game will be for the fans. I don't know if I'm going to do another shot tonight. We're almost up to 8 o'clock anyway, but we'll keep drinking this beer. This beer is for you guys. All right. That might be, we got a lot of super chatters there. You guys are awesome for the super chats. Let's go over to the regular chats. All of you guys, because there's a billion in here. Let's see. Scroll through. Beverly Furl says, I think we underestimated just how bad Eli Holstein could be. Thought his floor would be much higher. He's been one of the worst quarterbacks in the Power Four so far. I don't necessarily, I agree with some of what you're saying there. As it relates to his floor and his ceiling. I think the ceiling is still quite high for Eli Holstein because of all the natural abilities that he has. I think he has a good arm. I think he has, good mobility for a guy his size. I think he can really run. I think he's able to use that. I think it's, he did use it today. You saw it, and I think it was good. But that floor just seems to be so much lower than we expected it to be. I think we thought he would have, like you said, Beverly, I thought the floor would come up from last year. I didn't think we would see a rehash of last season. I thought we would see a guy who was better than he was a year ago. You know what I mean? That he would improve and, keep that ceiling and maybe raise that ceiling, but also lift the floor, elevate the floor. And that hasn't happened. If anything, the floor has gotten lower. Maybe it just feels that way because of what the expectations were. Dr. Acula says, I hate this team. I feel like I'm waste my time watching them. Unfortunately, I think a lot of Pitt fans feel the same way. The announced attendance today was 45,301. I don't know about that number. There weren't a lot of people there. It was kind of empty, and it emptied out as the game went on. Matt Fry says, this team can never surprise you when they let you down as a Pitt fan. Haven't we been used to this for 40 years? Need a coach who can build a program. But this felt like a coach who could build a program. It felt like a coach who was building a program. It felt like a coach who had built a program. And I still think he has built a program. I think there's a lot of elements of this program that are built that are strong, that are good. But there are also some things that are happening that you don't know how. It just doesn't make sense how it's happening in year 11. You just can't really get it. Let's see. Josh Newark says, this is not a 2-2 team, but at some point the buck stops at Pat Narduzzi. Enough is enough. Yeah. It's like it does. It goes back to the head coach. It goes back to the head coach with the in-game decisions. It goes back to the head coach with the play calling and the game planning. It goes back to the head coach with the conduct of the players and the discipline of the players. I mean, it does. The buck does stop with the head coach. And he knows that. He'd be the first one to tell you that it comes back to him. I don't know. I wonder how much accountability he would take for some of the things that have dogged this program. Real Talk says, our problem is we aren't running the football, way too much passing. I mean, I think it's okay to build your offense around the passing game. I think it's okay to emphasize the passing game. But I think if you've got to at least try to find out if you can run in a given game. And then if you can, I think you need to keep doing it. And that was the thing they just didn't do. They never really, it looked like they could run. They were getting good runs, but they just never committed to it and stuck with it. And so you ended up, you saw what you ended up with. Yeah, in the second half, I kind of I wrote down all their plays. They ran 22 offensive plays in the second half. 10 of those 22 offensive plays gained positive yardage. 10. The other 12 plays were Eli Holstein run for 0 yards, so he got back to the line of scrimmage. 2 sacks, 1 for 7 yards, 1 for 1 yard. A Juelz Goff run that lost 2 yards. The screen pass to Deuce Spawn that lost 2 yards. 4 incomplete passes and 3 interceptions. 12 out of 22 plays in the second half did not gain positive yardage. Jim said, Jim Hammond, our guy from Panther-Lair.com, he put up a tweet that I think Pitt gained 3 first downs in the second half. I think they converted 1 third down in the second half, and they had 10 plays that gained positive yardage. You're not even giving yourself a chance to win. Like, if your offense is, if that's how bad your offense is, you either need to change the scheme, change the play caller, change the quarterback, and maybe all 3. Mark Sholoju says Eli is not a gunslinger, a gamer, or any other adjective to describe quarterbacks who get the job done in unique ways. He can't do the routine routinely, and it's time to move on. I wonder what the future looks like for Eli Holstein at this point. We talk so much about this over the last 2 weeks after the West Virginia game. We talked about the missed throws. We talked about the bad interceptions. We talked about where he is and where he's going and where we thought he would be and how he's not there yet. We talked about all those things. And then he went out and I don't know if I think he was worse today than he was against West Virginia, but he also had 2 more interceptions, another one in the end zone, but he's thrown 5 interceptions this year. 3 of them were in the end zone, and the other 2 were thrown directly into the hands of a linebacker who was right in his field of vision. Linebacker, football. That's the 5 interceptions for Eli Holstein this season. 3 in the end zone, at the goal line, all from inside the 20. 1 was at the 19. I think that was and then there was 1 at the 5 and 1 at the 4. Like the 19 was the one, the Duquesne one. And then Central Michigan, he threw 1 into the linebacker. And today he threw 1 to a linebacker. Mark Sholoju also says, Cade Bell is in over his head. He simply refuses to make key adjustments to help his offensive line. Let's see. David Allen says the game was lost on the interception from the 3-yard line in the third quarter. Would have gone up by 14. Likely game. Yeah. I mean, like, not going to disagree because that wasn't like 3rd and goal or something like that. It was 1st and goal from the 4. You just hit this big explosive pass play. And then you throw that interception. Like, I agree that changed the game because if you score, you probably do hold on and win this one. Steel Will 51 says, let me bring it up. Another wasted season. Knew it during the brawl. That was 2 bad teams playing bad football. Fast forward 2 weeks and it's only more obvious. Long year ahead. I mean, can't argue. It feels like it's going to be a long year. If they keep doing stuff like this, it does feel like it's going to be a long year. David Allen says West Virginia getting crushed in the last 2 games tells me we are not good. Rivalry be damned. West Virginia is a poor team and we lost an easy win. I agree. West Virginia is not good. I don't think Louisville is very good either. And in both cases, Pitt should have won those games. Benjamin Glazer. Oh, wait, we already read that one. Let's see. Scrolling through here. Travis Spagnolo says if you want to regularly go for it on 4th down when it's 4 to 7 yards to go, you run it on 3rd down. They never do. Their offensive approach has no logic whatsoever. I'm glad you brought this up because there were a bunch of instances where there were plays that yes, I agree. Right. So 3rd and 5 from the 37. Any of these distances, like if you're 3rd and 7 inside the 40, run the ball. Run the ball. Louisville had a case like this where they had like a 3rd and 7 from inside the 30 or inside the 40. Let me see if I can find it. It doesn't matter, but you know the kind of scenario I'm talking about. 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 from the 37, the 39, something like that. And Louisville had, Pitt's defense was in the Delta package. It's a pass defense. Run the ball against that. Run the ball. If you're inside the 40 and you're facing 3rd and less than 10, run the ball. Pick up 3, 4, maybe 5 yards. Maybe you'll get lucky and break one because they're expecting you to pass. And if you pick up 3 to 5 yards, you now put yourself in a manageable 4th down. You put yourself in a 4th and 2, 4th and 3, 4th and 4. Run the ball on 3rd and slightly higher than medium from inside the 40. Run the ball. I absolutely agree with you, Travis Spagnolo. Like that is what you should do. But again, like there are too many instances where it feels like there's no thought put into it. And that's being reductive. Obviously they're thinking, obviously they're putting thought into it. I can't say that they're not thinking about it. I don't want to oversimplify it, but like It's just, let's go to the super chat. Got a couple more here. Came in here. Royce Beacom says, is the super chatter says, your opinion is best on Pitt, but can we say Pitt has more talent than West Virginia and Boston College, but we lost? Is Pitt's talent better than Boston College next week? Forgetting the bad coach. So I don't want to say, Royce, I'm not going to sit here and say my opinion's the best on Pitt. I don't know. I've been wrong about Pitt more than I've been right about Pitt. And that's not just this year. That's not just this week. That's like for 20 years. Like I'm not going to sit here and say I know more. But I do think this team is talented enough. And I'll tell you why I think Pitt is talented enough to be better than they have been. And I think it's because when I look at the loss to West Virginia, right, and how they lost, and some of the key plays that cost them that game, it wasn't really a matter of West Virginia being that much more talented. You know, I look at the game today, when some of the key plays that cost Pitt this game, it wasn't really a matter of Louisville being more talented. They made some plays. There's no question about it that Louisville made some plays. Like I say, Miller Moss threw for 339 yards. You know, Chris Bell had 135 yards and a touchdown. You know, Colin Lacey caught 8 for 95. Like, they had the two tight ends catch touchdown passes, Kuriski and Skinner. You know, like, they did a good job against the run. You know, Duke Watson and Isaac Brown, 28 carries for 67 yards. That's all. That's really good. You know, like that's, what is that? Little, 2.5 yards per carry or something like that. That's a great job against those guys, defensively. Like, when you have a team like Louisville that has some of these talented players, they are going to make plays. When you say like, oh, Pitt's defense just getting gashed, they keep giving up these passes over the middle. Well, they did, because good teams are going to make the plays, you know? But I still think when you look at the reasons Pitt lost this game, it wasn't because of a talent disparity. I don't think Louisville out-talented them. I think Pitt blew it. I really do. Davey GNYC says, is this the end for Pat Narduzzi? Bad game management. I don't know if it's the end for Pat Narduzzi. I think, look, if they were to make a change at the end of the season, I don't think we'd look back and say the Louisville game is what sealed the deal or put the nail in the coffin. I think it would be more games like this that did it. I don't know if the Louisville game's the one. Listen, folks, we're gonna have another one here. We're gonna have another one. It's that kind of night. You guys have been great on the live stream here. Great super chatters. We're gonna do another shot here, because I think the fact that we're all here hanging out, the fact that we're all able to come here and hang out, like I say, 200 people watching a live stream after a game where Pitt played like they did and blew it like they did, that deserves another Backshore Apparel shot of the game. I really think it does. And in case you don't know, Backshore, who sponsors our shot of the game, they were born in Pittsburgh, built on the Tampa coast. They're designed for days by the water and salt in the air, but it didn't stop there. Today, Backshore hats are made for every season and every forecast, whether you're chasing waves, hitting the trail, putting for birdie or bogey, or braving the Pittsburgh cold. Wherever life takes you, Backshore Apparel has you covered. So explore the collection at backshoreapparel.com. Backshore with coastal roots, all weather ready. Backshore is run by a big Pitt fan, Mike. He's the man. Panther-Lair.com subscriber, big fan of the podcast, and he sponsors the shot of the game. So, Mike, shout out to you. Shout out to all the Pitt fans who came out here tonight to do the live stream. Drink them if you got them. All right. Let's see here. Anything else we should jump to? I'll just read a bunch of these really fast. Okay. Keats 2422 says, no excuses for Pat Narduzzi. On-field product is a direct correlation to the coaching. Hard to argue with that. Carniac 1230 says, outcoached every single week. Program is not going anywhere until Narduzzi is canned. I don't know if they get outcoached or not. I'm not smart enough to tell you, but it's not. There haven't been many games recently that have been a ringing endorsement of the coaching staff. I would agree about that. Day G's says, I don't know why I thought this was going to be a bounce back year for Pitt. Shaking my head. Yeah, I thought so too. West Virginia guy chiming in, not even going to bother, don't care. Marlon Barnes Truther makes an Entourage reference. I started off this episode, this live stream, by making an Entourage reference where, in Entourage, they're talking about a movie. It's a very bad movie, and they say, but the pieces are good. There's a good movie in there somewhere. Somebody just needs to put it together better, and I think that's kind of the case with this Pitt football team. So Beach Dante says, what did you think about Eli Holstein shoving Cade Bell on the sideline? I didn't see this, so I can't speak to it. I forgot what play it was even after. It was maybe the interception. I forget. I forget. But I saw some other people tweeting about it. I didn't see it myself. If you guys did, you can talk amongst yourselves. Travis Spagnolo says Pat Narduzzi's tenure should be viewed as successful, but they're spinning their wheels and won't dig out of this with him. Everything has a timeline, right? On a long enough timeline, everyone's life expectancy is eventually 0, right? Here, we'll leave with this. Scott Martin is a super chatter, says, "Go Ducks." Did that game start yet? The big game of the night here, the whiteout game. What time was that one? 10 minutes ago in the first quarter, no score. Maybe we'll go watch that. Is there an ACC game on tonight? Something, a real cooker that we can watch instead, like Virginia Tech, NC State, or San Jose State, Stanford. Yeah, we got a lot to enjoy there. Just real quick around the ACC, Georgia Tech stole one against Wake Forest. Wake Forest was winning that the whole time. Georgia Tech won it in overtime, but Wake Forest got screwed. You can look that up, and it's true. Duke blew out Syracuse 38-3 at the Dome. So much for Syracuse being a darling. Cal beat Boston College in Boston College. So much for being it hard to travel across the country. And in case you missed it last night, Virginia took down Florida State in double overtime, or 2 overtimes, however you want to say that. So interesting stuff around the league. Virginia Tech currently leading NC State, and Stanford currently leading San Jose State. All right, folks, Pitt loses 34-27. Panthers are 2-2 overall, 0-1 in the ACC, and they've got 8 more games to play. So we can look forward to that. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com so you can never miss any of our live streams or anything like that. We're not going to have any videos tomorrow. We're all going to take a little break. We're just going to write articles. You can, hang out on the message boards, and then we'll be back with the Morning Pit on Monday. So Pitt loses, but hopefully you enjoyed your Saturday. Otherwise, enjoy your Saturday night. Have a great rest of the weekend, folks, and we will catch up with you on Monday morning for the Morning Pit right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.